calm down. Mama, I'm fine, don't worry. Go back out to sea, sail home, sweet home, where the ships must go to get all cleaned up and put away.
Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome. My name is Caleb, and I'm one of the advocates here at Galt Advocacy. We do this every single week, so welcome back if you are not new here, and if you are new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. We talk all things special needs every single week, excuse me. So yeah, IHSS, Regional Center, what's going on at school, IEP support, all that jazz. And so today we got a cool topic. I say that every week. However, we're talking about protective supervision today, everybody. And for those of you who have been watching us for, 4.5 years now, we've been doing these streams. You know that protective supervision is probably one of our favorite topics, one of my favorites. It's something that I specialize in. I spend a lot of time with my team here, learning all of the ins and outs of this program and this category of this program, IHSS. And so we take a lot of pride in knowing quite a bit about what the criteria is, how it works for certain individuals, and how it doesn't work. And so if you want to have a conversation today about the toughest and most difficult, the most challenging cases for IHSS to get protective supervision, that's what today's topic is going to be about. So stick around if you have somebody in your life that has protective supervision and they want to, again, remain keeping it, or maybe there's somebody that you know that really should pursue it, but they don't have it. Send them this stream, tag them in the comment section. You guys already know what to do. Sharing the stream, liking it, loving it, that is really helpful for us, as well as it is for people who are trying to gather this information. Hello, Teresa. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being the first comment. And like Teresa here, feel free to drop a comment. You're welcome to say hello. Let me know what's going on in your life. You're also welcome to share with me where you're from, what you got going on. If you're looking for help with IHSS, you have questions about these things, you guys already know I try and go to the comments as best I can to address your comments and questions. Teresa, big shout out. As of this week, we have officially hit 9,000 followers here on Facebook. So Teresa, the person behind the Galt Advocacy comment here, she has been basically running our Facebook page for 12 years now, Teresa, 11 years, let me know. And it has been a long journey, but it is so cool to see us that step closer to a big number like 10,000. So we have 9,000 people who have come across our page and have decided to give it a like, a follow, and watch these weekly streams where I get to just yap for 45 minutes. And it's really cool. And Teresa, you do a fantastic job. Shout out to Teresa every single week with connecting with all the people here online, social media, YouTube and Facebook, who are looking for some answers, right? I'm only on here once a week. Dakota's on a couple times a month with me. We are always happy to connect with you guys, but Teresa is the one that will respond to your comments. Teresa is the one that's going to be connecting with you directly if you have questions. And so thank you, Teresa, and thank you to all 9,000 of you who have decided to follow our page. 9 years. Okay, not bad. 1,000 followers a year. I like it, right? Camila, hi. I've applied for PS and got denied over and over. You are definitely not alone, Camila. I'm glad you're here because we're going to talk a little bit about what to do when you get denied, maybe some reasons why you were denied. I'm going to provide some tips and some tricks a little bit. It's kind of hard to do that in a quick hour-long stream, but I definitely can hopefully share some things that might be able to help. And so you also might be one of what this banner says, the hardest protective supervision cases to win, and why. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so that based on the types of individuals that I talk about and conditions, diagnoses, behaviors, these are things that may fall under, your concern here. And so hopefully I can be helpful. We shall see. Francis, is your company only taking protective supervision clients? Thank you. Good question. So we work with a variety of different people and services. So we're not an IHSS group. We provide IHSS representation if you're looking for that. So we are a special needs advocacy group. So we partner with families who are looking for a lot more than just some help with IHSS. If that's all you're looking for, that's fine. We're happy to help you along that way. So traditionally, I would say most of the families that reach out to us are needing help with protective supervision. But anytime you want to reach out and just strategize or connect with us, we're happy to make something happen and chat with you about it. Whether you become a client of Galt Advocacy or not. So no, we don't only talk to parents or people who are trying to get protective supervision, but that I would say is most of the people who do reach out. Most of the conversations are going to be around protective supervision these days. Alan, how's it going, man? Glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. I also received your message, Alan. I believe I forwarded it off to Myra. I'll have to double check. I'm so sorry. You reached out at a very odd time a couple of weeks ago. Alan, we got to connect. Thanks for being here, man. All right. So we're going to go ahead and jump into today's topic. Again, before you do anything, if you can give it a like, share this in a support group, tag somebody that you may know who needs to hear about protective supervision. We're going in. Okay. So what is protective supervision? We're going to start with that briefly because you're all already experts of what PS is. Okay. We talk about it often. And so again, if you watch our streams every single week or a lot of our streams weekly, if you're in the support groups, you've come across protective supervision. So protective supervision is a part of IHSS. It's just another category of IHSS that is reserved for those who are mentally impaired and or mentally ill, who are non-self-directing, okay, and require 24-hour supervision. And so this was originally created for elderly people with dementia in facilities where the families wanted to bring them into their home and essentially be compensated so that they wouldn't have to pay for a facility to do all the work, right? And so many, many years ago, that was how it was created. And then they opened it up to the world of special needs, people with intellectual disabilities, people who have Down syndrome, autism, and so forth, right? Global developmental delays. So there's no age restriction for protective supervision. You do have to be mentally impaired, mentally ill, cognitively impaired, right? There has to be some type of cognitive aspect of this that makes it to where your judgment, your orientation, and your memory are impacted to the point where you can never be left unsupervised. Okay. So this is not for the anticipation of a medical emergency. If you have an uncle who's a stroke risk or a heart attack risk, it's not for them necessarily. It's for the individuals who mentally do not have the ability to assess and understand danger anymore, right? That's the term non-self-direction. So non-self-direction can apply to a lot of children as well as adults. It doesn't matter what age group you are. And so we're going to talk about age. A lot of you who have been denied because you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old and you were told protect supervision doesn't count towards children that age. We're going to talk a little bit about that and why IHSS may have told you that or why you may have heard that before. So, yeah, let me know if you have questions about protect supervision specifically. You are welcome to drop a comment and let me know. Hi, Alan. Yes, I am aware of who you are, Alan. All right. Teresa said we do also have a client that have a great deal of physical care needs and needed people who help support getting special education. Regional Center, our director Myra also helps with adoption assistance. Thank you, Teresa. So those are kind of a list. That's a series of things and services that we offer and support families on. So if any of these things you're needing help with, we specialize in these things. And so we'd love to chat with you about it. Thank you, Teresa. All right. So again, protective supervision. If it is approved under IHSS, a lot of people ask this question, how many hours is it? And so protective supervision itself is 195 hours per month. So Dakota and I actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago. So it is 195 hours a month. You either get all of it or none of it at all. You can't get a little bit of it or a lot of it. You either get 195 hours per month or 0 protective supervision hours. Okay. So just want to make that really clear. So if you have 35 hours a month already, and you then get protective supervision, you now have 230 per month. Math. All right. So one last thing to consider on this. is when you have that level of hours, you then are now going into the overtime pay range. Okay. So overtime starts right at around 173 hours per month. So if you have a client, maybe it's your child with autism, and they have protective supervision, they have 220 hours. That means they receive roughly 47 hours of overtime, which is paid time and a half to you as the caregiver, the paid provider. And so in most counties, that's going to range somewhere between 44 to, $4,800 a month tax free if they're a live-in caregiver. And then in certain counties like San Francisco County, where the pay rate is much higher than most other counties, it's going to be more like $5,000 a month. So that is protect supervision. Please let me know if you have any questions on that, or else I'm going into the next portion of this topic, which really is the big part of what we're talking about today, the toughest cases for protective supervision. Okay. We're going to start with some of my favorite individuals, the teddy bears. Okay. So a teddy bear is not a formal term. So please don't come after me. Please don't come after my team. We are all in the special needs world together. Okay. And I understand that certain terminologies may be not PC. And so I will try my best to be careful here because I don't want to offend anybody. But I have a sister who is a teddy bear. And what the teddy bear is when you are applying and pursuing protect supervision, teddy bears can be really difficult to get PS for because typically they're not the individual that's actively placing themselves in danger. Okay. So teddy bears can be people with Down syndrome or level 1 autism or mild intellectual disability or Williams syndrome, right? These are all conditions where traditionally, when you think about this person, they're not the individual that's actively engaging in something dangerous, right? My sister Molly is not necessarily going out of her way to elope every single second of every day. She's not headbanging during meltdowns, right? She's not actively in danger on a frequent basis. However, she is constantly supervised. Okay. She is super sweet. She's hilarious. She speaks. She's speech delayed. So some people have a hard time understanding her. But she, although is not regularly in a situation that requires intervention, my family has structured a routine to prevent that, right? They've done really good at providing protective supervision, right? But if Molly were to be left alone, Molly's in her 30s now, right? She's an adult who should be able to work a job. She should be able to date. She should be able to live on her own, but she's not capable of doing these things. Cognitively, she is probably right at around developmentally, maybe age 5 or 6 years old. Okay. If Molly were to be home alone, she would leave the house. She would go on a walk and probably get lost, probably get hit by a car. She would probably not know how to find her way back home, or be picked up by a stranger. She thinks everybody's a friend, right? If she's home alone and somebody knocks on the door, she's inviting that person in. It doesn't matter how scary they may look or how friendly they may look. They're coming in and they're going to enjoy some time with her Barbies. We talked about that last week. Molly's big on her Barbies. She's big on dress up. She's big on Disney. So Molly will sing you a Disney song. Oh, one of her favorite songs, by the way, it is not a Disney anthem song. Her favorite song of all time, and she sings it any opportunity she gets. It is the Star Spangled Banner. It is the Star Spangled Banner. Anytime Molly can do that, she absolutely will. It was quite the show on the 4th of July this year, where the family was gathered, and we're listening to Molly on the porch, just belting her guts out, the Star Spangled Banner. And I think we have a couple of videos of it. We'll try and maybe post it. I don't know. We'll see what we can see. Fine. But anyway, so a story to share with Molly and the reasons why, although she's a teddy bear case, she still would qualify for protective supervision. An example is a story that Teresa actually brought up to me recently that I haven't thought about in years. Molly was playing with my nieces and nephews years ago, and they were little itty bitty kids at the time, right? They're playing dress up in the backyard. They're playing make believe. They're having fun. They were being pirates, if I recall the story correctly. And Molly's having a blast because, again, right around 4, 5, and 6, that's Molly's age group. She loves kiddos around that age because she can connect with them a lot better. Molly's having so much fun being Captain Hook or a pirate that she decides it's going to be what a great idea. I'm going to go into the kitchen. I'm going to grab one of those knives. It kind of looks like a sword, right? You'd see in movies. And I'm going to go and I'm going to start swanging it. So she went into the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife she could, biggest butcher knife, and ran out into the backyard and started having a blast because she's a pirate, right? In that moment, Molly had no idea how unsafe that was for her and for the individuals around her, right? Although Molly was not intentionally trying to cause harm, she unwittingly caused potential harm because of her lack of safety awareness in that moment, right? So although Molly is not, again, constantly, regularly putting herself in situations where she's in danger, she will engage in certain situations like that daily if she is left unsupervised. So just an interesting example there. Another way we could describe this is people who are compliant, non-aggressive, sweet and natured, right? So if that sounds like your little Johnny or your little Laura, then you may have kind of a teddy bear case where it's going to require a bit of strategy in order for them to get protective supervision. Because again, we have all met these social workers who are like, your child's not headbanging, they're not eloping 30 times a day, they're not engaging in severe enough behaviors to need protective supervision, therefore they don't get it, right? That is not the regulations of protective supervision. And that's just how a lot of social workers are trained. That's what they're trained to say to you a lot of the times. Not everybody, not every social worker operates that way, but that's what a lot of people run into. Camila, you mentioned that you applied and were denied multiple times. You're welcome to share in the comments maybe what you've been told by these social workers. What information have you been given as to why they have disqualified you? I'm curious to know if maybe it aligns with what we're talking about today. Francis, can protective supervision be approved for a 13-year-old boy autistic level 1 or 2? So again, IHSS protective supervision does not discriminate based on age or diagnosis, okay? It all comes down to the level of mental impairment, cognitive limitations. Okay, if they are cognitively limited, they're level 1 autism, they have level 2 autism, then yes, absolutely, that person could be approved for protective supervision, right? That's just one of the factors there. There's a lot of other things that would qualify them for protective supervision. One thing I would recommend looking up is ACL 15-25. Okay, that is a regulation we've talked about a bunch here on Facebook. It is something we use often when we're trying to qualify somebody for protective supervision. And it's a question primarily around minors. That's what it's for, but it applies to pretty much anybody looking to get protective supervision. Okay, read the questions in there and ask them of yourself and of this person. And if they meet the criteria according to ACL 1525, then you may have a case. So Francesca, it does not matter if they're 13 years old or if they're 3 years old or if they're 59 years old. But I'm glad you're here. Thanks for asking. Misty, my son can tell you right and wrong and what is safe, but he does not complete opposite. He does the complete opposite and even says there are 2 of him, a good one and a bad one. That's tough. That's really tough because he falls in line with one of the categories we're going to talk about today as far as who's tough to get PS for. He would be a very tough case to win. Absolutely possible, right? There's other factors that we have to go into, but that is a really tricky one. When a social worker is asking, the recipient, this person, this individual, and they're able to tell you that they would call 911 if there was a fire, or that if a stranger knocked on the door, you get mom, right? We have a lot of those times, but in our hearts, we know that individual probably would never be able to do exactly what they're saying. Right? If I asked my sister Molly right now, I've done this before. I've played the and then what game with her. I said, Molly, if there's a fire in the kitchen, what do you do? Molly may have to think about it for a minute, but she'll eventually say 911 or something close to that, right? But that's because Molly has been taught that thousands of times over the course of her entire life, right? A child should only be taught that for a brief moment. And then it should be locked into their brain. You call 911. That's something you just never forget. Most individuals, right? Most neurotypical individuals should never forget that. But Molly's had to be taught that over and over and over and over again. And now she's at a point where she can understand that if that question is asked, that's the response. Everything else, nothing. Out the window. Molly has no clue. If you ask Molly to tell you why you would call 911, the conversation stops there. She's pulling out a Barbie from her bag because she's too bored to answer your question. She doesn't understand it, right? So Misty, you're welcome to connect with us. I would love to connect with you, Camila, anybody who has a child or an individual in that situation. It's very similar to what you've described. I'd love to learn more. Teresa, these cases are tough. My daughter fell out of a moving car when she went missing for over 24 hours. She has autism and they just took her hours away currently on your guys' calendar. I'm glad you're here, Teresa. I'm excited to hear a little bit more to see if maybe we can help you out. I'm looking forward to our chat. Is it easy to get PS hours removed? So easy, I wouldn't call it easy. Is there always a chance? Absolutely. So we have lots of people who reach out to us who have had protective supervision for years, and then they got it removed because of something they said, or a document that maybe the social worker didn't care for, or you got a social worker who just woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day. ACL 1525 stands for All County Letter. Thank you, Teresa. Yes, I would recommend you guys research that a little bit, read through it, if you're looking to see if your loved one meets the criteria for protective supervision, okay? All right, so we're going to go into the next most difficult cases to win, okay? That's going to be individuals with schizophrenia or other similar related mental illnesses, okay? So again, so people who qualify for protective supervision are individuals who are not qualified, but people who can be assessed for it. They have to be mentally impaired and or mentally ill, okay? So mental impairments will be things like intellectual disability, autism, Down syndrome, technically Down syndrome, but you get the point. Somebody who is mentally impaired, they will have some form of an intellectual or a global developmental delay, okay? Mental illnesses, this is a little different. This is somebody who may not be intellectually disabled. They may not be globally developmentally delayed, but they struggle with this illness that they have. It might be schizophrenia, it might be psychosis, it might be bipolar, right? So these are different things that can apply to somebody who, excuse me, I'm going to combine these 2 points here. So actually, yeah, this is fine. So schizophrenia. So this one and some the ones that are really similar to schizophrenia are really, really tough. Some of the most hardest cases to prove protective supervision for, because not only is there just not a lot of supportive documentation to highlight how severe schizophrenia can be, a lot of doctors just categorize it as kind of one and the same in a lot of ways. And so I had a social worker recently who literally told a client of mine that I was working with at their home assessment, with me present, that schizophrenia is not a condition, a qualifying condition for protective supervision, because it can be medicated. Oh, if those of you who want to know, you can get protective supervision because you have schizophrenia. You absolutely can. It's very possible. So those of you who, the social worker who told this person to their face that they just need the right medication and boom, problem solved, was wrong. They're wrong. And I told them that. But a big reason why social workers and judges even can be really hesitant when it comes to schizophrenia or similar conditions are, these are some of the most easiest things to fake. Okay. There's a lot of fraud with IHSS. There's a lot of fraud with social service programs. And so when they come across an individual who can speak very typical, they speak well, they're well dressed, they look as if they're living a pretty normal functioning life, but you're bringing up these episodic behavioral challenges that this person has, and it's related to their mental illness, a lot of times they question it. And so these social workers see everything. And so we can have an understanding a little bit of this funnel of fraud that they try to fill. They want to protect it, right? But that does make it very challenging for those families who really do have an authentic schizophrenic case that they're trying to pursue protective supervision on. Okay. I mentioned the data and things like that. So there's not too many experts in the world of schizophrenia. Okay. A lot of these mental illnesses are not tangible like autism is. They're not tangible like intellectual disability, right? If somebody's intellectually disabled or autistic, there's certain signs and characteristics that are just full blown, like right there. You can't fake it. You can't lie about it. They're just there, right? With schizophrenia, a lot of times it's like an onset as they get older, right? It's very, very rare for somebody under the age of 16 to have schizophrenic tendencies or to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. It's usually something that is genetic, it's hereditary, and it can happen later on in life. And so that's one of the many reasons it can be really tricky to prove for. And there's lots more we can go into it. But a lot of it too is also the episodic behavior that I tapped on a minute ago. So IHSS does not like episodic behavior. Okay. If you say that my Johnny is schizophrenic and he, around the same time, around the same reasons, will enter into an episode where he is just not lucid. He doesn't know where he is. He doesn't know who he is. He's aggressive with himself and with others. IHSS doesn't like that, because then they'll ask you, well, how often is he lucid versus present? If he's lucid only 1 or 2 times a day, that's not frequent enough to need protect supervision. That's a very common response that you'll get from IHSS. And so you have to be able to claim that this individual is not lucid most of the time. Most of the time, they are not themselves in that moment. And so, sorry, I just realized to turn my fan off. Hang on. It's like getting hot in here. Okay. All right. So let me know if anybody has any questions in regards to this portion of the conversation. Brittany, been working with Galt since January, and we have our home visit next week. So thankful for the guidance. I've learned so much. I truly appreciate it. Get a free consultation with them. Yes, thank you, Brittany. If anybody is curious, we'd love to try and help you out as best we can. Whether you become a client or not, give us a call. We'd love to try and help. Sherry, my brother has it. I assume you're talking about schizophrenia. You're welcome to share some challenges or some struggles that if you're comfortable sharing, please let us know. You said he is not well. I'm sorry to hear that, and I'd love to help you out if I can. So feel free to share whatever you are comfortable sharing. Okay, another really tough one. Okay, you guys ready for this one? I know a lot of people who have they've talked about this, because we've talked about this before, is conservatorships. Okay, those adults who are not conserved can make it very tricky to get themselves protect supervision. Okay, if you don't know what a limited conservatorship is, that is basically like a guardianship of an adult. That is when an adult, like my sister Molly, who's not capable of making medical decisions or financial or relationship decisions, she's not capable of doing that in a safe way or in a way that's in her best interest. So she relies on my parents to do that for her. Okay. Therefore, Molly is conserved. She has a limited conservatorship over her. And my family, my parents, are the conservators. So my parents get to basically help her choose and basically make the decisions for her on where she lives, who she gets to speak with, who gets to work with her on IHSS or respite or whatever. If she needs to connect with regional center, the doctors, therapists, all of that is controlled through her conservators. So a conservatorship is similar to that of what you would do for a child, right? A child has rights. They have their own rights, but it's limited because they're not allowed to make certain decisions. They can't vote, right? And so they can't make certain relationship choices under the age of 18 or medical choices or financial choices. So a conservatorship just is in place. It's used to protect those individuals who are unable to make those types of decisions on their own. Okay. When you apply for protective supervision and this person is not conserved, IHSS by law doesn't have to speak with you. They don't have to listen to what you say at all. Technically, they have to rely on the individual's testimony. So if you are not conserved, then IHSS sees you as just another typical individual in the eyes of the state. You are an individual who has legal rights. So if you're there in this assessment with IHSS and you're telling them that they hit themselves, they run away, they elope, they don't understand how to cook a meal, they don't understand that the stove is hot, therefore they'll touch the stove. But then the social worker looks to your child or this adult, right? Or not a child, but an adult who's not conserved, and says, "Is that true, Mr. Johnny?" And Johnny goes, "I know the stove is hot. It's unsafe. I wouldn't touch it. I know not to leave. I would never leave the house." Right? I wouldn't let a stranger in. That's stranger danger. But then you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, Johnny did all those things last week. He's never made a meal for himself. He doesn't know how to operate the stove. The last time he was near the stove, he literally burned his finger, right? And then he did it again a week later because he forgot how dangerous it was, right? So, but again, if they're not conserved, technically IHSS doesn't have to listen to you. They don't even have to talk to you because they have to talk to that person. Now, thankfully, most social workers know that can be kind of bad taste. So they will entertain the conversation with you. Excuse me. But it does kind of paint a picture. If they're assessing somebody who's an adult and they're not conserved when it looks like they maybe should be, they will consider that as, oh, well, maybe there's things and factors, reasons as to why you haven't pursued the conservatorship. Therefore, if they don't need a conservatorship, if that's what you've determined, they can live their life perfectly fine without a conservatorship. There's no worries with that. Then they probably don't need protective supervision. That is oftentimes the conclusion of a social worker and also a judge. So I would highly recommend, now again, I am not a lawyer, okay? So I cannot tell you to go get a conservatorship, but I can tell you that you should highly, highly consider it if you feel like it would be beneficial to your adult loved one. Reach out to an attorney. If you don't have one in your family, if you don't have one local to you, reach out to us. We have people that you can connect with. Ask them questions. Ask them pros and cons of conservatorships, the expectations. How much will it cost? Because it can be costly sometimes. You could do it yourself as well. If you wanted to file the paperwork, it's going to be lots and lots of paperwork. It's going to take months and months and months. I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself, but you can. All right. Excuse me. We're doing pretty good on time, 12:30. Katie, you said person with a TBI also can be very difficult. So it kind of depends, right? If it's an elderly individual who had a stroke and they have a TBI because of it, they had brain swelling and that caused a traumatic brain injury. That one I wouldn't say is as difficult because you'll have a lot of medical documentation to kind of go up and prove that. Usually people with TBIs have tons of data to show why they're not cognitively functioning like a typical person anymore. But it can still be a very tricky case. I'm glad you brought that up. Leisha, what if there's a POA or guardianship? Does it have to be a conservatorship? So in the state of California, we do not refer to guardianships. We do not refer to the individual being under a guardianship, to my understanding. In California, it is considered a conservatorship. Those of you can correct me if you believe that I'm wrong, please let me know. I briefly touched on this, I think a week or two ago. So a POA, power of attorney, doesn't really give you any actual power. A power of attorney allows you to help sign documents on this person's behalf. It can help allow you speak not necessarily for them, but with them. So it is more of a partnership between you and this person who may need help, but it doesn't give you the right to make decisions for them. It depends on the power of attorney that you get. And so traditionally, another thing too is the power of attorney can be revoked. Okay. So IHSS, if you have a power of attorney for your adult loved one, they're going to ask you, if you get denied protective supervision, you have to go in front of a judge. The power of attorney does not make it to where you could just speak for them and do everything for them. The power of attorney is in place to help them, right? That judge is going to ask you a very important question. They're going to say, does your loved one understand what a power of attorney is? If they can describe to a judge, if your loved one who's autistic or has a mental impairment, if they can tell a judge what a power of attorney is and they understand exactly what they signed, they're most likely not getting protective supervision. Okay. The only way that might work is if it's an elderly person with dementia who is mentally ill rather than cognitively impaired. Okay. But if it's an autistic individual or somebody with Down syndrome where they've lived with this their whole life and they're now adults and they can't function in kind of that normal society and make these decisions for themselves, a power of attorney is helpful, but not necessarily for protective supervision. Hello and happy Friday to you, Estella. Welcome back. You're always here. Guardianships are for minors and conservatorships are for adults who are unable to make their own decisions. Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate you. All right. Next, we got a few more for you guys today. Great questions, as always. You guys know the drill. If you can share this stream, tag a friend, tag a support group. I haven't seen any support groups tagged yet. I might have missed it, but if you could do that, that's really awesome. That helps us get some more viewers in the stream, get some more comments going, some questions. Also, has any of this information been helpful for you today? If it has, please leave us a Google review. Let us know how. Google reviews are a great way for us to kind of spread our wings a little bit and connect with more people. It is really, really scary to reach out to strangers like ourselves, right? We're an advocacy group. Again, we provide services for people. That also includes just free help consultations if you just want some advice. But sometimes it could be really scary to make that decision to reach out to somebody. So a lot of people will go to our review section on Google and kind of get the experiences from others before they make that decision. And so if you guys can just blow up our Google reviews and leave a review, it doesn't have to be good. I would hope it would be good, but let us know. Just remember that it could be a comment or a review that really helps somebody with making a decision on seeking help that they may need. Okay, moving on. Oh, a couple questions real quick. Allie, can you get a guardianship on a minor child to deal with the doctors? I would recommend just connecting with a family attorney on that. So to my understanding, you would want a guardianship in a situation where you're adopting or fostering, I would assume. So I'd probably connect with an attorney on whether or not that would be necessary for the doctors. Gino, wow, first time here and apparently missed a lot of helpful info. How often do you guys go live? We go live every Friday. Every Friday at 12 o'clock. We stream here on Facebook and on YouTube. So wherever you're at, if you've got Facebook or YouTube, you can find us. I see, Gina, you're watching us from Facebook, so welcome. Give our page a follow if you haven't already, please do. But every week at 12 o'clock, I go live, and then Nicole goes live at 1 o'clock in Spanish, Pacific Standard Time. So if you speak Spanish and want to watch Nicole, she gets to talk about the same stuff I get to talk about, just in Spanish. Veronica, what about PS for a 4-year-old level 3 autism? Hang tight. We're getting to you, Veronica. I have a section coming up here in just a moment about 4-year-olds. Here's where you can say their info really helps me or something like that. Thank you, Teresa. Google review or review section. Please click the link. All right, next. Let's see here. We're going to talk about, I'm going to briefly touch these conditions real quick, and then we're going to jump into ages, okay? I want to talk about ADHD, bipolar, ODD, and DMDD. I get a lot of phone calls with individuals who have these conditions. If you're not familiar with them, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, that is an individual who can't stay still, somebody who mentally and physically has a really hard time functioning, regulating their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts. They're always on the go, right? And so that person can be really impulsive, and it can in some situations be so intense to the point where they may actually qualify for protective supervision. Bipolar, if you're familiar with bipolar, again, it's an emotional regulation disorder to some extent. It has a lot of manic aspects and factors that come with it, as well as impulsivity similar to that of ADHD. ODD and DMDD, these are conditions that not too many people are familiar with. ODD is oppositional defiant disorder. This is where somebody gets the goggles on. Okay, my sister Emily with Down syndrome, she also has ODD. ODD is very common with people who have bipolar or other similar, like really impulsive conditions. So ODD is when the blinders go on and you see nothing but red. Whatever you're trying to do in that moment, you need to do it, and you don't care what anybody else is saying. Okay, so a lot of people who have a child or an adult where they get so fixated on something that they're not supposed to be doing, or maybe it's just time to go, they're not done doing it yet, they will have the biggest meltdown or tantrum ever, right? And I'm not talking about like a little toddler meltdown, right? If my sister Emily she's 32 years old, if she's locked in on a show and she's watching her show and it's time to leave or it's time for bed and she just doesn't want to do it yet, that could cause this extreme meltdown. A part of that, of course, is her intellectual disability or inability to process that emotion or feeling. But the ODD part of it makes it that much more challenging. Okay. It's when you see red and nothing anybody says is going to allow you to get out of that situation. Okay. DMDD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder. This is becoming a very, very, I don't want to say popular, but a very common condition for kiddos who don't necessarily have ADHD. They don't necessarily have bipolar. They don't necessarily have ODD, but they have something. They have an emotional disturbance that they're not able to regulate. And so this one's very, very common these days. And so if you've had a similar diagnosis or the doctors are concerned that it could be it, just know you're not alone in this. It typically is paired with somebody who has ADHD most commonly. But these conditions where they're not necessarily mental impairments, they're not necessarily categorized as like true mental illnesses, these conditions alone are not typically qualifying somebody for protective supervision. Okay. And so it can depend, because again, it's not diagnosis discriminatory, but usually to have a better chance at getting protective supervision, you're going to need an actual intellectual disability or autism or something paired with this condition. This condition on itself, a lot of times, is not normally going to be enough information to prove why this person needs protective supervision. So they are also extremely difficult to get PS for. Okay, quick questions here. Kathina, how common is it for a person to have an individual have a conservatorship and also act as legal attorney? A family member has full control of their adopted daughter, and I'm concerned for her. If you're concerned, I would maybe recommend connecting with Disability Rights of California or Free Legal Aid, or connect with an attorney. It's not something we unfortunately can help with at this time. You definitely have a say if you're close to this family member. You said that it's an individual. A family member has full control of it. Okay, so if you are a family member, if you're part of that family, you can have a say to some extent. I don't know the laws or restrictions around that, but depending on how close of kin you are, you could theoretically reach out to the state, reach out to a judge who ordered that conservatorship, and you can contend it. And so I don't know the process on that. I would recommend connecting with an attorney, but you can contend a conservatorship if you feel that it's wrong, or if you feel that the conservator is abusing their powers. Absolutely. Priscilla, yes, my daughter, she has ADHD, and I just found out she has ODD. I think she might have something else too. Not sure yet. Still trying to get more test results done for her. Yeah, just keep in contact with with the psychiatrist and the professionals in her life. It could be a number of things, right? I couldn't possibly diagnose her, nor should anybody for that matter. It should be strictly the people that treat her professionally. But a lot of people who have ADHD and ODD will discover that there's a lot of other things as well that kind of pop up. And so I'm sorry to hear that you're kind of going through that diagnosis process. That's a really tough time. You're in the thick of it. So keep going, Priscilla. Everybody shout out to Priscilla. We're here to help you out as best we can. If you have any questions, I'm very, very, very familiar with pretty much all these diagnoses and conditions we've talked about today. A lot of it I grew up with personally in my own home. And a lot of it, it's just through my experience working with families for so many years doing this. And so if you have any questions, Priscilla, I'm happy to help. Okay, real quick, don't go anywhere, guys. We're going to talk about age in just a moment. Tricia, that's where this caseworker keeps saying it's her ODD. They keep saying that it's, let's see. Okay. I don't quite understand. You're saying that the social worker is saying it's her ODD. Is that what's keeping her from protective supervision? I'm not too sure what you mean. Andrea, someone with autism stems and hurts himself, would he be able to qualify? Lots of nosebleeds because he stems with his face. Example, on the concrete floor, walls, and hard surfaces. Yeah, so those would be considered non-self-directing behaviors if they're related to his autism, if they're manifestations of the autism, right? Adriana, give me a call. I would love to qualify your son a little bit more. I'd say personally or detailed wise, I can pretty much tell you on a phone call whether I think he meets the criteria, but it definitely sounds like it's possible there. Okay. Teresa, can be common if they need that kind of supervision and support, but if you think she's been taken advantage of. Okay, cool. Thank you, Teresa. So if you have a thought that somebody might be taking advantage of their power of a conservatorship or guardianship, click the link that Teresa dropped below. Thank you, Teresa. Okay, so we're going to go back to this, one of the last portions here. We're talking about age now, okay? So this is going to be probably one of the most hardest, if not the hardest, protective supervision cases to get, okay? And that is going to be children that are under the age of like 5 years old, okay? I have so many people. There are so many people here in the comments, so many people that come to us on Facebook, so many parent groups that you probably work with and talk with, and maybe even yourself, where you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old and you want protective supervision, okay? Again, age and diagnosis they don't discriminate. But for age, it can be really, really, what's the word? It can feel like it. Okay. So there's really tricky aspects of getting protective supervision for a child under the age of 5. And so you absolutely still can pursue this protective supervision. If you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, that's fine. But you're going to run into some big speed bumps that you're going to have to just drive over somehow. You got to have a vehicle that's strong enough to take care of these speed bumps, because these are not little speed bumps. Okay. So one of the biggest things is the hardest things that a social worker has when they're assessing PS for a young child is distinguishing the developmentally appropriate versus concerning behaviors. Okay. So just because you have a 3-year-old who elopes or doesn't understand the stove is hot or doesn't understand stranger danger, that does not mean your child's getting protective supervision. A lot of these maladaptive behaviors that you describe are very similar to that of a typical child, right? If I have a 3-year-old who's neurotypical and they dart out into the street in oncoming traffic, your first thought isn't going to be, oh my gosh, why would they do that? They must have autism. They must have an intellectual disability, right? That's not going to be where our brain typically goes. Kids will be kids. Kids lack safety awareness at age 3 and 4 and 5, right? It's just natural. However, you have to distinguish the difference, okay? And that can be really difficult for a social worker, because most children who are 3, 4, and 5, regardless of how severe or profound their condition may be and their behaviors, a lot of the times it still will be just too similar to that of a typical child, requiring typical child care. So again, that does not mean you can't get it for a 3-year-old. We've worked with lots of families who got it approved at age 3 years old, 4 years old, not tons, but there have been, right? And you'll see people here online post and share their stories on that. But there is kind of a luck of the draw a lot of the times in that situation. And you can't rely on that. You can't rely on getting lucky with the right social worker. You can't rely on getting lucky with the right judge. You have to consider a big factor here, and that is there is a mindset that these social workers have going into this, that if you are going to be a paid caregiver for your child that's 3 years old, there has to be a significant difference between that child's behaviors and what's considered typical, right? We've gone over a little bit about how difficult that can be. One of the reasons why that's so difficult is the history involved, okay? So a lot of times, most people don't have the data that's required to get protective supervision approved. You can't just tell a social worker or a judge that your child headbangs or elopes, or that your child will finger paint with their feces, right? Well, you can't just say that. It has to be backed up by evidence. There has to be reports. There has to be IEPs, IPPs. There has to be behavioral assessments, things in place that go way further beyond than just your testimony, okay? And so when you're 3 years old, oftentimes you don't have that data just yet. You don't have the years of IEPs. You don't have the years of IPPs. You don't have years of police reports or doctors' assessments, things like that. And those things are necessary, especially when it's a young child. Okay? So don't get too discouraged, because the next point that I'm going to have is going to be, okay, I'm a little behind on my outline, guys. Sorry, I'm trying to get through it. But we're going to talk about patience and how it's okay to wait. You don't have to pursue protective supervision today. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. If you have questions, there are some comments here. Okay, so let me go to your comments, everybody. Amanda, what documentation other than the IPP and SOC paperwork does IHSS need if your child has received a certificate of completion? My child is not in an adult day program because he's too much because it's just too much for my child. Getting a letter that states that. If you can get a report that says that there's no day programs that can cater to your child's needs right now, then that's a great letter, because day programs are very versatile. There's so many of them here in California. I mean, depending on where you live, of course. I shouldn't say that there's so many, but there's lots of different kinds. There's lots of different individuals at day programs, lots of different educators and teachers and support. And so if there's not one single program in your area that can cater to them because they're just too profoundly disabled, get a letter from the doctor that says something like that. So additional documentation for an adult, again, conservatorship can be one thing. statements from the doctor talking about the capacity of their diagnosis or their cognitive limitations, statements or reports from psychologists or therapists. These are all things that can be helpful. And so if you want some more information, Amanda, please feel free to reach out, okay? The social workers tend to focus on aggression with ODD, which is why it's hard to get PS. That's also a great point, Teresa. Yes, a lot of times individuals with ODD can be aggressive towards those who are trying to de-escalate a situation, right? And again, protect supervision is not how that person is causing someone else harm. It's about how they're causing themselves harm, potential harm, okay? What about protect supervision for a 9-year-old? Level 2. My son hurts himself, bites himself, headbangs, attempts to clean products in his mouth, attempts to wear. So everything you just shared, Leah, sounds like this individual could potentially qualify for PS. I would highly recommend connecting with us before you pursue. I would recommend that to anybody before you really pursue IHSS protective supervision. Give us a call. I highly recommend talking to somebody who knows what the heck they're talking about, and I can provide you invaluable information. Things that'll just make it so drastically different for you. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean working with us formally. I just can give you so much more information than what you would find online from personal experience as well as professional experience that I have along with my team. So Leah, before you start the process of protect supervision, which it sounds like you should, I don't know yet, I want you to give me a call. I would love to chat with you. Anna, it's possible. You're responding to Leah. Thank you. Okay. Roxanne, our social worker showed up today and he called and said he's outside the house. I thought our assessment is August 21. Turns out I was wrong. I got confused on the date. I told him to reschedule because we were not home and I misunderstood the schedule. Will this affect my son's hours in the future? It could. Be aware. Social workers do not like to reschedule. Depends on the county that you're in, but I would want you to be prepared for a nasty letter in the mail that says you're losing your hours. Okay. It may not happen. The social worker may be understanding of it, but if you were the one that did mix up the date, then I would reach out to the county and say, hey, mix up, please let me know how we can fix this. Okay. Just reach out to the county, reach out to your social worker or just a clerk and offer to fix this by getting an assessment whenever they're available, and go from there. Okay. So some information, documentation that is non-negotiable, okay? We talked about how you need your IEPs, you need your IPPs, you need the doctor's statements, the SOC documents, right? You need behavioral reports, assessment reports. These are all things that have to align to create a puzzle, a big puzzle, okay? There's an analogy that I heard recently that I like, and getting protective supervision, building a case for it is like going to an art museum and seeing an exhibit with just art where it has pictures, portraits, sculptures, right? All these different, 30 pieces of artwork that are just beautiful on their own, right? They have meaning. They just all have their own story. They're great. And then next to that art exhibit, there is a puzzle exhibit where you go to that exhibit and it's just one big puzzle. It's a 500-piece puzzle. It's one thing. And you're like, okay, well, what's the key here? How does that apply to protect supervision? When it comes to gathering evidence for protect supervision, you need the puzzle, not the art exhibit, okay? You may want to provide 500 pieces of evidence, 500 different things that all talk about some great things that may point to protect supervision. But if they all are different, like the art exhibit, it's different artwork. It's a canvas painting, it's a sketch, it's a mold, all of that, that's not going to be very helpful because they all have their own story painting their own picture, their own puzzle, right? So what you need is one puzzle, where all of your pieces of evidence are a puzzle piece that fit to this one thing, okay? All your evidence needs to be unison. It needs to talk about the exact same things. It's okay for them to be a little different, but they can't say one thing and then another document say something completely different or not mention the behavior or the concern, okay? I know we're getting close on time, Teresa. I'm hurrying here. Okay, know your rights. If you've been denied protect supervision, you've been denied IHSS, you do have the right to appeal a decision, okay? Before you appeal, please listen. Before you appeal, consult with an expert. It doesn't have to be me. Selfishly, I would love for you to connect with our office, but connect with somebody who knows the appeals world. It is awful Okay. If you have not worked with if you think your social worker was really bad because you got denied, wait until you meet an IHSS judge. Okay. It is not a friendly environment and is not fun just because you saw a post about somebody who did this, that, and this with their appeal and they got it approved. That does not mean it applies to you. Okay. So I would highly recommend, if you are considering an appeal, which you have the right to do, you have 90 days to appeal the notice that you receive in the mail. Okay. If you're considering it, give us a call. Give somebody a call. I'd love to try and help you. And I know somebody else would love to try and give you advice as well. Okay. Lastly, and I'm going to leave it with this. Okay. It's okay to not rush this process. Okay. A lot of people are very, very quick to appeal. They're very quick to apply for IHSS because they see the potential here that can be life-changing. Again, it's a life-changing benefit. It changed my family's life growing up as a child. Okay. It's changed thousands and thousands of families' lives. And I get it. And I want to help you with that. But you can't rush the process of protective supervision. Okay. The appeals world, it's like a 6-month process. You can't rush that. Okay. Getting your assessment done, that can go by really quickly, really fast, and you got to be prepared for it. It is best to be prepared before the end. Okay. You don't want to have to salvage a protective supervision case. That is the worst thing you can do. Okay. You need to be prepared and ready to present the case before you get to the point of your assessment or before you get to a hearing. Okay, rushing the process, that's where the frustration gets kicked in. That's where the confusion comes in, where you're like, man, I thought I did everything right. I got the documents the social worker said. I followed all the rules. I did everything I was instructed to do. But if you're rushing the process in that time frame, you're probably not going to have evidence that's going to be powerful enough. You're not going to be able to testify the way that you wished you should have testified. Okay, so don't feel that you have to rush. If your child's 3, it's okay to wait. You can wait until they're 4 or 5 years old. I know that's easier said than done. I'm not in your home. I'm not in that same financial situation that you may be in, right? I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. So it's easier for me to say, hey, just wait. I know, whatever. But it is true. It is true. It's okay to wait. Yes, you can get protective supervision for a 3-year-old. But if you don't have the data, if you don't have that information, you need it. Take time to build a case. That's important. And I'm happy to help you with that. I'm happy to teach you how that works. Okay. All right. Let's see here. I think we're just about out of time, everybody, because I got to run. There's a few comments that we didn't get to, and I'm so sorry. We will try and save these and maybe come back, or Teresa can try and address them later after the stream is posted. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. Thank you for being here like you are every single week. Again, if you're new, we're here every Friday at 12 o'clock. Where I go live. And then if you speak Spanish, we go live at 1 o'clock in Spanish with Nicole, where you can see her. She's one of our advocates here. She's phenomenal. But thank you, everybody, for showing up today. I'm so happy that you all came and had some amazing questions about protective supervision. If anything, again, I said, or our team said, or Teresa said in the comment section that struck a chord with you and it was helpful for you, please give us a review. Tell us how it was helpful. Let others know that there's information here that we can provide that might be helpful for them as well, because we would love to try and share this with as many people as we can. Okay. Before you go, give the video a like, a share, a follow, whatever you can do. That helps us, and that helps, again, spreading more information into the world of this community that we're trying to help. Right? Everybody, I hope you all have a wonderful Friday. Thank you again so much for stopping by. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.